Hello everybody and welcome back to another Fear the Walking Dead video, and today I'll be talking about what I think is the best episode in each season of Fear the Walking Dead. That's 8 episodes, 8 seasons. So let's jump right into this with Season 1, Episode 6. This is the episode where everything just hits the fan. The first few episodes, they're a bit Walker-light, and that's meant to be the purpose. This is the fall of LA. This episode shows us how LA falls. We get some amazing character moments, and the entire season just builds to this one episode, and it just does not disappoint. One critique I did have of Season 1 was I felt like when we saw stuff going down in LA, they would either deal with it very quickly, or they were cut over to, oh, it happened this in the past now. This episode is just the big... everything hits the fan all at once, and every character gets something very interesting to do. So, Season 1, Episode 6. Season 2 is Episode 14. This was my favourite episode for years. So, of course, it's going to be my favourite episode of Season 2. This episode, the reason why it's my favourite, solely because, it's not because Chris dies, it's the breaking of Travis and the way the story is told, where you have Travis in the room with these two characters, and he's like, okay, where's my son? What happened to him? And Travis is hearing these stories, he's picking holes in it. He's like, okay, so you pulled him out of the wreckage, or was he already out of the wreckage? And then you have the moment where Travis snaps, and that's my favourite. That is still my favourite moment. Even if this is no longer my favourite episode, that moment where Travis snaps and brutally kills the two guys is still my favourite moment in the Walking Dead universe. This episode absolutely delivers. And whenever I think back to Season 2, this is the episode I think about. Moving on, Season 3 is Episode 1, and this episode is a great starter to an absolutely phenomenal season. I really do like how they break up the cast, because it does let the cast all do different things. I really like Travis getting put into a pit and he's just punching walkers to death. Madison going full mama bear. This is where Madison starts to get her time to shine, because you no longer have Travis taking the spotlight because he's off doing something else in this episode, and Nick is kind of off doing something else as well with Lucy. Madison is just given the floor to absolutely destroy Troy with putting a spoon in his eye. We get to see Troy this episode. Big introduction. Phenomenal character, easily one of my favourite characters in the entire Walking Dead universe. So obviously I'm going to be very biased towards this season and this episode because Troy's in it. I just absolutely love this episode. Definitely one of the best openers for Fear the Walking Dead. They're not really good at openers, I feel sometimes. They're kind of a bit weak a lot of the times. This is easily one of the best openers. I would also have to say my one down of this episode would be I don't like how the walkers pull a guy through the wall and then swarm the base way too quickly. But other than that, absolutely phenomenal episode. Season 4 has to be Episode 1, and the whole reason this episode was because the back half of the season is absolute trash, and this episode probably had the best writing. I really like the mystery because instead of focus on the Fear cast, we focused on Morgan, and it's like, okay, we're watching how Morgan went from The Walking Dead to Fear. We meet John Dory, we meet Al. I really like John Dory in this episode because Morgan's injured. They just keep following Morgan around, and Morgan's like, I want to be alone. He's like, nah, man, we have to stay with you. And this episode has a lot of mystery with these flags and numbers. And then right at the end of the episode, we then see the original Fear cast attacking Morgan and his new group. And it's just that mystery of what's happening. Where's Madison? Why is she not with them? This episode is just really, really good. It's just easily one of the better episodes in the season because everything else is a bit mid. So it default makes Episode 1 the best one. And Season 5 is Episode 3. And this is the episode where we get introduced to Dwight again. And that's the whole reason I like this episode, the whole reason it's here. Because every other episode in Season 5 I think is absolute trash. And that leads only this episode, really. I really don't like any other episodes. Just this episode, we get a very, very fun kind of Gulch episode with John Dory, June, and then meeting Dwight. You get, some people don't like it, but I do like the over-the-top shooting, where you have Dwight lift up the axe and John Dory shoot at the axe, split the bullet and kill two walkers. Some people don't like it. I just think it's fun. This is a very fun episode, and that's all I could say. It's just every other episode in the season is absolute trash. Moving on to Season 6, and it is Episode 1. This episode is easily my favourite episode of the entire show. This saved Fear for at least another 2 seasons, I would say. If Season 6 had a terrible opener, I don't think Season 7 and 8 would have happened. But because of how good this episode was, and they fixed Morgan, this episode fixed Morgan. We finally got past Morgan being flip-floppy and Morgan just being boring and annoying. I just can't give this episode enough praise, and it's already in such a strong season. Season 6 is more or less my favourite season. It depends on the day, sometimes season 3, sometimes season 6. That's because almost every episode in season 6 is an absolute banger, but I feel like nothing comes near the heights of how good episode 1 was. And season 7 is episode 2, and this is one of the only good episodes in the season. I have to say, every other episode, maybe episode 1 and 3 are good, but every other episode is absolute trash. So we have episode 2, my favourite episode, solely because of Morgan, and this episode takes the most advantage of the nuclear wasteland. I really like this episode because it's basically Fallout before the Fallout TV show came out. We had the ghouls, we had these very creepy looking characters because their skin's peeled off, and they're trying to steal Mo because they've lost their baby. And I really like the journey that Grace goes on in this episode. At the start of this episode, she can't really connect with Mo, but by the end of this episode, she accepts Mo as her new surrogate daughter. This episode is just so well made. It looks amazing, sounds amazing. I just can't go over how good Fear Season 7 looked at the start of the season. Near the end of the season, they kind of forgot radiation was a thing, but in those first few episodes where they were stuck inside of the nuclear wasteland, it was absolutely amazing. I feel like this episode took the most advantage of that. And now season 8 is episode 4, and this is easily the best episode because every episode is terrible. There's no budget for the final season, so every episode looks cheap, it's terribly performed, it has terrible sets, just every episode is just so bad. And then you have this one good episode which focuses on Morgan and then finishes off this character development that he's had for 10 years. It finally closes the cycle. Morgan goes back to King County and he's able to get past the trauma that's been affected him for over a decade. This episode, it just doesn't feel like it's a part of the final season of Fear. It feels like a final episode for the Walking Dead season. That's how good it is. It just doesn't feel like a Fear episode. So that's why it's the best episode of season 8. But please tell me down below, do you agree with my list of my opinion for the best episode of each season, or do you have a completely different set of episodes? I'd like to know your thoughts down below. But that's it for me today, so goodbye, peace out, and I'll talk to you later.